Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes stacks of sources, pulls out the crucial bits, and gets you informed fast.
And today, wow, we're tackling a really fascinating figure, a philosopher known as the obscure, the riddler, even the dark one.
We're talking about Heraclitus of Ephesus. He was around roughly 535 to 475 BCE. Hugely important thinker.
Absolutely pivotal. But here's the catch. All we have left are these cryptic little fragments, snippets from a book that's completely lost.
Imagine trying to piece together a complex machine from just a handful of broken parts.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing today. This deep dive is about trying to reconstruct his vision from those remnants.
Yeah, we want to see if we can find a coherent philosophy in there. Show that he wasn't just tossing out random weird sayings, but actually had this foundational view on, well, everything change, reason, existence, stuff that really shaped Western thought.
But it's tough, right? Because the sources themselves, they're tricky. We're dealing with fragments quoted by later writers.
And those writers often had their own agendas, didn't they? They were quoting him to argue against him sometimes.
Precisely. So there's bias baked in. But here's the really interesting part, his obscurity. It might have been deliberate.
Wait, so he wanted to be hard to understand. Why would anyone do that?
Well, the theory is he wanted to force you, the reader, to really engage, to shake up your assumptions.
Ah, okay.
He even compared himself to the Delphic oracle, the famous oracle at Delphi.
Sure.
He said the oracle neither declares nor conceals, but shows by a sign.
That she gives clues, not answers.
Exactly. The difficulty isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's meant to wake you up, make you think actively.
The challenge is the message.
Okay.
Okay, I like that. So to get a handle on this guy, we need to understand his world. 6th century BCE, Ionia. The Ionian awakening.
Right. This was a hotbed of intellectual revolution. Think places like Ephesus, Miletus, big shift happening.
Moving away from myths and gods explaining everything.
Towards rational, natural explanations. These were booming port cities, lots of trade, lots of different cultures mixing.
So new ideas were flowing in, like math, astronomy.
Yeah, exactly. And you had this merchant class with maybe a bit more time and money for thinking. Plus, the priests weren't quite as dominant, maybe, so thinkers had more freedom.
Okay, fertile ground. So how does our dark one, Heraclitus, fit into this scene? He was part of this search for a basic principle, an arche, like the earlier Milesians Thales and Anaximander.
He inherited that goal, yes, but he went off in a completely radical direction.
How so?
Well, the Milesians were looking for a stable thing, a material substance. Like Thales said water and Anaximenes said air.
Right.
Heraclitus said, no, it's not a what, it's a how. The fundamental principle is a dynamic process, a rational structure. He called it the logos.
And he symbolized it with fire.
Fire is the best symbol, yeah. Because fire is constant change process. And he was pretty critical of just knowing lots of facts. He had that famous line.
Oh yeah, the Polymathea one.
That's it. Much learning does not teach understanding. He basically says, knowing lots of stuff didn't make Hesiod or Pythagoras wise.
So wisdom isn't just collecting information.
It's about seeing the underlying pattern, the single unifying thing, insight over just data.
His own life seems just as shadowy as his writings. What little we know comes mostly from Diogenes Laertius, like centuries later.
Yeah, definitely take it with a pinch of salt. It tells us maybe more about how later people saw him than about the man himself.
We know he was an aristocrat in Ephesus and gave up some kind of hereditary kingship.
Right. Seems he wasn't interested in political power, passed it to his brother. Shows a kind of disdain for the usual way of things.
And then you get those totally wild stories. Him hating everyone, living in the mountains, and that really bizarre death involving cow dung.
Huh. Yeah, those are almost certainly made up. But they're fascinating because they show how people tried to explain him.
How do you mean?
Well, the misanthropy story, maybe that explains why he was so critical of ordinary people, calling them asleep. And the weird death story. It's almost like a crude joke about his own philosophy, the unity of opposites like wet and dry, life and death. It shows how much his ideas could provoke people, even in a hostile way.
So the legends are interpretations, attempts to grapple with this difficult thinker. And his language itself was part of that difficulty, wasn't it? Those short, punchy, paradoxical sayings, aphorisms.
Absolutely. Riddles, almost. Aristotle apparently complained you couldn't tell where the sentences were supposed to end.
Huh. Punctuation problems even back then.
But again, it seems deliberate, connected to that Delphic oracle idea, gives a sign.
So he's not just telling you things, he's making you decode them.
Exactly. You have to solve the verbal puzzles, and by doing that, you learn to read the signs of the world itself. The style mirrors the reality he's describing.
It's a performance of the philosophy.
That's a great way to put it, a mimetic device. When he says the way up and the way down is one and the same, or that seawater is both pure and polluted.
Depending on whether you're a fish or a person.
Right. Those aren't just statements, they're linguistic experiences of that tension, that unity of opposites. You have to hold both sides in your mind.
So wrestling with the words is like a mental workout for understanding the cosmos.
You got it. It's dialectical thinking practice.
Okay, let's get into the core of that vision then. At the absolute center is the logos. You mentioned it earlier. It means, well, lots of things, right? Word, reason, principle.
Yeah, it's famously multi-layered, but for Heraclitus, it's the single, objective, universal, rational principle that orders everything.
He says it exists forever, it's common to all, but most people don't get it. They're asleep.
Right, living in their own private understanding. That's from fragment B1, the opener. Wisdom, he says, isn't about listening to him, Heraclitus, but listening to the logos and agreeing all things are one.
So this is that shift you mentioned. Not a material what, but the intelligible how.
Exactly. It's the underlying pattern, the structure. Think about a river again.
Okay.
What makes a river a river? It's not the water, because that's always changing.
All right, different water flows through constantly.
The river's identity, its logos, is the dynamic pattern. The flow, the banks, the relationship between them, that structure persists even as the material changes.
And how do we connect to this logos? Through the soul, the psyche. He said, I went in search of myself.
Yes, self-knowledge is the path. He believed a dry, soul, fiery, rational, grasps the logos best. A wet soul, maybe from too much wine or emotion, is duller.
Makes sense if fire is his symbol for the logos.
And crucially, the soul isn't static either. He says the soul has a self-increasing logos.
Meaning, understanding grows.
Exactly. It's a dynamic process. The more you understand, the more your soul aligns with or becomes like the cosmic order it's grasping. It's a journey.
That journey fits perfectly with maybe his most famous idea. Panta rhei. Everything flows.
That phrase itself is probably a later summary, but it captures the essence of the river fragments. Upon those who step into the same rivers, different and again different waters flow.
And the really mind-bending one.
Yeah.
We step and do not step into the same rivers. We are and are not.
Yeah. That shows the flux isn't just out there in the world, in the river. It's also in us, the subject. We're changing too as we step in. Constant becoming.
So, okay, if everything is always shifting, isn't that just chaos? How can we know anything for sure? That feels unstable.
That's the big question. And it's how Plato sometimes read him, leading to the idea that if everything changes, knowledge is impossible. But that's likely a misunderstanding or maybe an exaggeration by Plato.
So what was Heraclitus really saying?
He was saying the flux is not chaos. It's ordered. It's governed by the logos. That unchanging law is why things maintain their identity through change.
Like the river. Its identity is the flow. If it stops flowing, it's not a river.
Exactly. Or his other example, the chitin drink.
The barley and cheese thing?
Yeah. It only stays mixed if you keep stirring it. Stop stirring and it separates. Its identity as a mixture depends on the motion.
So stability comes from the dynamic process, not in spite of it.
Precisely. Structured change. That's the key. The pattern within the flow.
And what drives this flow? What keeps the structure dynamic? You mentioned the unity of opposites.
Right. Coincidentia oppositorum. Things that seem contradictory are actually deeply connected, interdependent. They define each other.
The way up and the way down is one and the same.
Or God is day, night, winter, summer, war, peace, satiety, famine. You can't have one without the other. They exist in tension.
And this tension isn't a problem, it's the engine. He calls strife, polemos, the father of all. That sounds pretty harsh.
It can sound that way, yeah. War is the father of all and king of all.
Yeah.
But war here is more like cosmic struggle, tension, the dynamic interplay of forces.
Not just destructive conflict.
No. He says, strife is justice. This is the exact opposite of Anaximander, who thought opposites encroaching on each other was injustice. For Heraclitus, that struggle is the cosmic order, the justice.
And the classic metaphor for this is?
The bow and the lyre.
Yeah.
Their attunement of opposite tension. They only work because of the tension pulling in opposite directions. That tension creates the harmony, the function.
So it's not a logical contradiction, like A and not A at the same time. It's about how reality is. Its being is this dynamic balance.
Exactly. It's an ontological principle. Reality is that tensional harmony.
Which brings us back to fire as the archetype. This world order, an ever-living fire, kindling in measures and being quenched in measures. Is he just swapping fire for Thalus's water? Or is it deeper?
Much deeper. Fire isn't just stuff. It's the perfect symbol, the physical embodiment of the logos.
Because fire is process, it consumes, transforms, it's always changing.
Precisely. Its very existence is its activity, and that phrase, kindling in measures and being quenched in measures, that directly links the physical behavior of fire to the rational order, the measure, the logos.
So the fundamental stuff isn't static matter, it's this ordered, dynamic process, perfectly represented by fire.
You got it. Physics and metaphysics fused in one powerful image.
Okay. Now, Heraclitus wasn't just shouting into the void, he was part of a conversation. You mentioned his critique of the Milesians and their much learning. Even though he claimed to be self-taught, I went and searched for myself.
Right. That search for myself line signals his autonomy, but he definitely knew their work. His critique was about how they sought knowledge.
Not just collecting facts, but seeking insight into the unifying pattern, the logos.
Exactly. And this is a big deal. It's an epistemological turn. He connects knowing the cosmos with knowing yourself. Metaphysics, epistemology, psychology, they all start to link up. It really paves the way for Socrates later on.
And then there's the big matchup. Heraclitus versus Parmenides. Flux versus stasis. The ultimate philosophical grudge match.
Huh. Well, that's the traditional story, mostly thanks to Plato and Aristotle setting them up as opposites.
But modern scholars see it differently.
Yeah, quite differently now. They actually had a lot in common. Both were rationalists, distinguishing appearance from a deeper reality you grasp with reason.
Both looked down on ordinary folks who didn't get it.
Yep, scorn the mortals.
Yeah.
And both were searching for some kind of unchanging principle behind everything.
So the great debate was maybe more like Plato using them to frame his own ideas?
Largely, yes. It's more accurate to say they tackled the same core problem, the one and the many, permanence and change, but came up with different answers.
Parmenides saying change is just an illusion.
And Heraclitus saying change is real, but it's an eternal structured process governed by the logos.
So the real fight was about the nature of the underlying reality. Dynamic tension versus static unity.
Exactly. And Plato brilliantly used that tension. He basically said, okay, Heraclitus is right about the world we see, it's all flux, but Parmenides is right that true knowledge needs something unchanging.
Under the forms.
Enter the eternal, unchanging forms. A Parmenian solution for knowledge built on a Heraclitean description of the messy, changing world. Genius move, really.
His influence just keeps spreading like that fire. Plato grappled with him.
Yep. He saw the Heraclitean flux as the problem his forms needed to solve. The sensible world is Heraclitean becoming. The intelligible world is Parmenidean being. A grand synthesis.
Then the Stoics came along and basically adopted him as a philosophical ancestor.
They really did. They took the logos and made it the absolute center of their system. For them, it was God, reason, fate. This divine, rational fire or breath permeating everything.
And they developed that idea of cosmic cycles, ekpyrosis.
Right, the universe periodically consumed by fire and reborn. But crucially, they made it practical.
Oh.
Their ethics live in accordance with nature, which meant aligning your own reason with the cosmic logos. It became a guide for how to live your life. Very influential.
Fast forward to modern philosophy. Hegel, he basically said he took everything from Heraclitus for his logic. That's huge.
It's an incredible statement. Hegel saw Heraclitus as the starting point for real philosophy, the first to grasp reality as dynamic, becoming the unity of being and non-being.
So Hegel's whole dialectic thesis, antithesis, synthesis, is like a systematic version of Heraclitus's tension of opposites.
That's exactly how Hegel saw it. He felt he was just fully developing what Heraclitus had intuited, trying to write the complete book of the logos from the fragments.
And then Nietzsche, another huge admirer, he saw Heraclitus as an ally against Plato and Christianity.
Definitely. He loved Heraclitus, saw him as this aristocratic, life-affirming thinker. Heraclitus's polemos, strife, looked like an early version of Nietzsche's will to power.
And the style, too, the aphorisms.
Absolutely resonated. Nietzsche saw Heraclitus as a model for embracing all of life, the struggle included, like his ideal Übermensch.
And finally, Heidegger in the 20th century. He went back to Heraclitus looking for something even more fundamental.
Heidegger saw him as an insexual thinker, someone who had this original primal experience of being itself, which Heidegger thought the whole later tradition, starting with Plato, had covered up or forgotten.
So Heidegger tried to strip away the interpretations.
Yeah, his destructive retrieve.
Mhm.
He retranslated key terms in really unconventional ways. Logos became gathering. Physis, nature, became emerging forth from concealment. Aletheia, truth, became unconcealment.
Trying to get back to some original meaning.
Trying to hear the echo of that primordial experience of being in the fragments. Very poetic, very controversial reading.
It's clear that just reading Heraclitus today is still a huge challenge. The lost book, the fragments, the biased sources.
It's the core problem. We have no direct access. People like Plato and Aristotle quoted him, yep, but often to make their own points, maybe twisting his ideas a bit.
So how do scholars approach him now? How do you build a philosophy from ruins?
Well, that's the Heraclitus problem. Every interpretation is a reconstruction. There's no single definitive Heraclitus. And maybe that's the point, right?
How so?
Maybe understanding him isn't about finding the one right answer. It's about engaging in that process of reconstruction yourself, becoming that philosophical detective, embracing the ambiguity, just like his riddles forced you to.
And this ambiguity fuels all the big debates.
For sure. Was fire literal stuff or just a metaphor for process? How exactly does the unchanging logos govern constant flux? Is it an exception or the law of flux?
And the big logic question. Did he actually think contradictions could be true? Did he deny the basic law of non-contradiction like Aristotle thought?
Exactly. Was he a dialetheist? Someone who thinks some contradictions are true? Or did Aristotle just misunderstand the ontological tension he was describing? These are still live debates.
But it's not all just cosmology and logic anymore, is it? Scholarship now is looking at the bigger picture. His ethics, politics.
That's a really important trend, moving beyond the flux and fire guy to see the whole thinker. His ideas about strife, polemos, weren't just cosmic. They applied to the city, the polis, managed by law, nomos, and justice, diga.
So when he was insulting his fellow Ephesians,
That wasn't just being grumpy, it was political critique. They weren't grasping the common good, the logos as it should manifest in the community.
there's even a hint at something.
Mm-hmm.
Egalitarian.
Surprisingly, yes. That line, thinking is common to all, it suggests wisdom isn't just for some elite. It's potentially available to anyone willing to do the work, to inquire, to listen to the logos. It rounds out the picture considerably. The same deep laws govern stars, soul, and city.
So wrapping this up, Heraclitus. Still incredibly challenging, still incredibly rewarding. We piece together this vision of a cosmos run by the Logos' dynamic, tense, rational order, all from these glittering fragments.
And remembering that his obscurity wasn't accidental, it was a tool, a way to force us into that active, wrestling kind of thinking needed to grasp a reality that, as he said, loves to hide.
His ideas just keep echoing, don't they? You see them in theories of social change and existentialism dealing with flux, even in how we think about identity today as a process.
Absolutely. Psychology, systems theory. The idea that being is becoming, that structure emerges from process, it's very Heraclitean.
So maybe the final thought for you, listening. Over 2,500 years later, Heraclitus's core message is still pretty potent, maybe even unsettling. Reality is this constant flow, but there's a hidden harmony, a rational pattern beneath it all.
Perhaps wisdom, then, isn't about fighting the change or seeking some impossible stability. Maybe it's about waking up, as he urged, to that underlying logos, that unifying pattern in the currents of your own life and the world around you.